Today is September 5th, 2022. My name is Rob Carr of Kalamazoo Right to Life, and this is Pro-Life Week. Well, just a few things today on this Labor Day of 2022. Did any of you see Joe Biden's speech last Thursday night when he addressed America standing in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia with a red draped background with some Marines standing at attention? Well, I think a lot of conservatives and pro-lifers may have thought that that was a very partisan, mean-spirited speech by the president. Oh, he claims to be this unifier. That speech was anything but unifying, and he went on the attack. But first off, the optics were very interesting for me. He chose, or his handlers chose, a red background. You know, they may have thought, well, red, white, and blue, that's the American flag. But, you know, I've got a different perspective on the color red. You know, throughout the 20th century, in particular, two countries had red flags. One of them was the Soviet Union, the USSR. It's an all red flag. And the other one was the Nazi flag, a black swastika with a red, background color. And I've got my share of books that kind of give you an idea that the Nazis loved the color red. And these books just kind of reflect that idea that they loved the color red, blood red. And I guess my best example here is Adolf Hitler's own book, Mein Kampf. And actually one commentator on Fox News even made a comment that he thought that Biden's speech reminded him more of the Triumph of the Will. Now, if any of you are unfamiliar with that, it was a film documentary, German film from about 1935 or 1936, chronicling Hitler's arrival at Nuremberg for one of those Nazi party rallies. And it's very well done, but it's all propaganda. And they use special lighting and for effect. It was just very staged. And that's kind of how I saw the Biden speech, a staged speech of hate. And he basically says to half of the country, you're un-American, you're unpatriotic, you are a threat to democracy. And this is a quote. I said, Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. And then he goes on to include what this extremism is. It's one of those descriptions is that the Republicans, the MAGA Republicans, want to deny a woman's right to choose. Well, right there, it says it all. The issue of abortion is paramount for the Democratic agenda. And this obviously was a political speech. He wants to rally the troops. He wants to get people activated to vote in November for the midterms. And they have latched onto the Dobbs decision, the overturn of Roe v. Wade, as their tool to retain both House and Senate in November. And they're convinced that the pro-abortionists in this country, the people who love killing babies, will rally around the altar of abortion, and they will vote pro-death, pro-Democrat in November. And I found it ironic too that he goes on and on about MAGA Republicans and how they're hateful, they divide the nation, they're extremists. They want to deny liberty and democracy. all these things, which are not true. But anyway, so I got to thinking, did the president make any comments about the extremism that the pro-abortion people are wielding against pro-life groups and churches and pregnancy care centers? Acts of vandalism, defaming, defacing, painting, graffiti, setting off bombs. Did he say anything about that kind of extremism? Of course not. Did Biden make any reference in his speech to the extremism perpetrated against the Supreme Court, especially the one individual who flew from California with the express intent on killing Brett Kavanaugh, a Supreme Court justice? Did Biden mention that kind of extremism? Well, of course not, because those narratives just do not fit the pro-abortion zealotry that Joe Biden represents and the Democratic Party represents. So I found that quite telling, that it's always somewhat one-sided. When a black person is killed by a police officer, that's the time to rebel, to demonstrate, to burn. And what happened in Minnesota, the George Floyd incident, I totally support the decision of that jury, that police officer and even the other three that were with him deserved to be punished severely, especially for that one officer that killed George Floyd. But when rioters kill police officers, or when rioters kill innocent people, where's the outcry by the left, or by the liberals? Very often they are very, very quiet when it happens the other way. When police do it, they're evil criminals. But when the other side do it, the criminals do it, well, they're almost justified. So I'll end with that on the Biden speech. But I just wanted to mention that tomorrow, I'm not sure when tomorrow, but probably in the morning, pro-life attorneys will be gathering in Lansing, as will the pro-abortion attorneys, and they will make their case before the Michigan Supreme Court. Last week, as I may have mentioned, and I'm sure you've read or saw in the news, last week, the Michigan State Board of Canvassers voted 2-2, a split decision, not to certify the Reproductive Freedom for All's referendum that would legalize abortion through viability. It would repeal our 1931 law and wreak havoc with all of our pro-life laws enacted in the last 40 years. But tomorrow, both sides will make presentations before the Michigan Supreme Court. Now, I know we were celebrating when the Board of Canvassers voted 2-2 not to certify, which was great. But we also knew that full victory had not been attained, because we still had one more much bigger hurdle, and that was going before the Michigan Supreme Court. And according to what I've read, the makeup of the 7-member Supreme Court is 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans. So going in tomorrow, we will be facing 4 pro-choice, pro-abortion justices and 3 pro-life justices. So the question is, will we win on the merits? The other side last week, the other side said that we basically didn't like the wording on the petition drive because of the content, which was untrue. We objected to the form of the petition because all the run-on sentences, it was not a word, it was 7 words all strung together. That's not a word. that was improperly formatted. It was incorrectly printed, and even the chairman of the Board of Canvassers said, had we known this is how it was going to look, we would have never approved this for circulation, for a petition drive. Never. But somehow it kind of snuck through the cracks. I mean, is it partially their fault? Well, I think, when they made some corrections back in March, somehow they did not look at the final copy. And had they done that, they would have found the mistakes. But it went through the system. They got their 750,000 signatures on a form that was, I believe, invalid because of all these run-on sentences and these run-on words without spaces. Typos like crazy. So if we are going to win on the merits, that it was the form that was illegible or invalid, then we have to convince, I think, at least one Democrat on the Supreme Court to agree with us that the issue is not the content. The issue is the format of the petition. And if he looks at the form, I'd like to think that he or she would admit that, no, I support abortion on demand, I support the referendum, but they just didn't do it the right way. And for that reason, I would vote not to certify. So I'm not holding my breath. I hate to say this, but I'm not really completely expecting our side to win. But I do believe that our God in heaven could do wonders, miracles. And I do believe that miracles can still happen in this country and in this world. I believe that God is a miracle-working God. So can God change the heart of the king, so to speak? Can he change the heart of the Supreme Court? Yes, I'm fully convinced that God can open up their minds and they can see with their own eyes, this really is not right. And if they voted it down, it's not to certify and it would not go on the ballot. It may be a temporary reprieve on our part, and it would just give the other side, the pro-abortion people, 2 years to do it right. Not to say that the petition is ever right. I'm not saying that. But from their point of view, if they lose out now, they have 2 more years to get it right and do another petition drive and fix the wording. And if they really want to see state of Michigan, an abortion state, then they just need to work a little bit harder to get that done. Meantime, we can stop it at the Supreme Court. Continue to pray and believe that God can change their hearts. With that, I will let you go, and I will see you next time.